Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the assessment details of a SOC 2 report.
In business, trust is everything. But it's not just a handshake anymore. It has to be proven. So, how do companies actually do that? Well, today we're going to break down the key documents that turn vague promises into solid proof, the stuff that really makes the business world go round. So, let's put ourselves in a situation we've all probably been in. You're picking a new software vendor, right? And they're telling you everything you want to hear. Oh, yeah, we're super secure. Your data is completely safe. But how do you really know? How do you cut through the marketing fluff and get to the cold, hard proof? It's a huge question, especially when you're dealing with critical data. Well, the answer usually comes down to what I call documents of trust. First, there's something called the management representation letter. This is basically the leadership team formally saying, hey, our financial numbers are accurate and we stand by them. Then for the tech side of things, you've got this SOC 2 report. SOC stands for System and Organization Controls. Think of it as a deep dive audit by an independent third party, proving a company has its act together when it comes to protecting your data. Both build trust, just in totally different areas. For this explainer, we're going to zero in on the SOC 2 report. Why? Because honestly, in today's digital world, it's pretty much the gold standard for knowing if you can trust a vendor. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's actually inside one of these things. And to make this super practical, we're not just going to talk theory. This right here, this is a real deal SOC 2 Type 2 report from a company called Next Quarter. We're going to use this as our guide, our roadmap, to figure out what these reports are all about and, more importantly, how to actually read them. Okay, so these reports can be long, like over 100 pages sometimes, but don't worry, they're broken down into four main parts. First, you get the auditor's opinion. That's the final verdict. Then there's management's assertion, which is the company's official claim. After that, you get the system description. This is the juicy part, the story of how everything works. And last but not least, the control tests and their results, the actual evidence. And here's something really important. Before an auditor even weighs in, the company's own leadership has to sign on the dotted line. This is management's assertion from that next quarter report. It's a formal letter signed by top execs like the COO and the CISO. They are personally vouching that their system description is right and their security controls are solid. It's them putting their own skin in the game. So once management makes that big promise, they have to back it up with details. And that leads us to what is really the heart of the entire report, the system description. This is where the company lays it all out and tells their story. I love this analogy from Secure Frame. It just clicks. They say the system description is like a really detailed owner's manual for a car. It tells you everything, the safety features, how it's been maintained, how it all works. The whole point is to give you total confidence before you get behind the wheel. So what's actually in this manual? Well, it covers 5 key areas. You've got the infrastructure, all the hardware and servers, the software, the apps and tools they use, the people, who does what, who's responsible for security, the data, what kind of data they're handling and where it goes, and finally, the procedures, the rule book, the policies that everyone has to follow. And it's not just a wall of text, which is great. For the infrastructure part, you'll often see diagrams, kind of like this one from next quarter's report. You can literally see the path data takes, from a user's computer all the way to cloud services like AWS. It gives you a really clear map of the whole system. Same goes for the people part. You'll see things like org charts. And this isn't just about showing who reports to whom, it's about proving that there are clear lines of responsibility for security. It shows the auditor, hey, we have a real structure here, from the very top all the way down, which is exactly what you want to see. Okay, so the company has told its story. They've described the tech, they've described the people, but how do we know any of it is actually secure? How do they prove it? Well, that brings us to the engine room of the SOC report, the controls. It's all set up in this really logical way, kind of like a pyramid. At the very top, you have a big principle, like security. That gets broken down into more specific requirements. For example, you must enforce logical access. And how do you do that? With a specific testable control. Like we make sure multi-factor authentication, MFA, is turned on for every single system. See? It connects a big idea all the way down to a real action. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, the controls are all the things you'd hope a company is doing. We're talking about stuff like MFA on everything, no exceptions. Using role-based access so people can only see the data they absolutely need to see. Running background checks on new employees. Encrypting data so it's unreadable if it gets stolen. And having a strict approval process before anyone can make changes. Every single one of these is a tangible security action. All right, we've been deep in the weeds here, I know. So let's zoom back out. Let's talk about the big picture. Why does all this paperwork actually matter so much for real-world business? Here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if we're talking about that management letter for finances or a SOC 2 for security. They do the exact same job. They take a company's words, we're secure, our numbers are right, and they transform them into written, independently checked proof. And that proof? That's what modern business is built on. So that leaves us with one final thought, something for you to think about. Your partners, the vendors you work with every single day, they all make promises, right? But if you really push them on it, could they prove it?